Media commentator Cokie Roberts says when Donald Trump calls Hillary Clinton unhinged, he's really speaking in code.
That's right. This is about unhinged and she doesn't look presidential is totally code for we shouldn't elect a woman.
Cokie, also sometimes known as flaky, snowy, blowy, tooty, and pearly, after the magical crystals that make her mind work so quickly she can interpret Donald Trump's secret messages even as he's speaking, says Trump's coded language is as sinister and subtle as the messages she sometimes receives on her dental fillings from the planet Ganunu 12, where plans for an invasion have been underway ever since Cokie blew through that particularly excellent shipment of powder from Bolivia. For instance, when Donald Trump says Hillary Clinton supported the Iraq War, then abandoned our troops when the war became unpopular, then opposed the surge because she feared Barack Obama would use her vote against her in the 2007 primaries, Cokie knows that's really code for women aren't fit to govern because they are blown with tides of popular opinion rather than being able to make decisions on their own for reasons of principle. And when Donald Trump says that as Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton cleared the way for the Russians to buy up 20% of America's uranium supply in return for nearly $3 million in donations to the Clinton Foundation and exorbitant speaking fees for Bill, Cokie understands that that's really code for females are genetically encoded to search for security and will therefore trade their ideals for a wealthy husband or a large bank account. And when Donald Trump says, when Hillary made approaches to Vladimir Putin with her cutesy push the reset button routine without realizing that Putin was a dictatorial tyrant who would seize every chance he got to thwart American interests and rebuild the lost power of the Soviet Union, Cokie believes that sexist code for women's attraction to strong men is so instinctive that they can be lured even by toxic, overbearing masculinity into forming foolish and self-destructive relationships. And of course, when Donald Trump says Hillary encouraged the overthrow of Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, then abandoned the region to chaos that only added fuel to the spreading fire of violence in the Middle East, Cokie hears coded language meaning women are too flighty and undependable to take a single course and stick with it until they've seen it through. Other coded messages Cokie Roberts has received include the woodpecker who tapped out, "You're just not good enough, Cokie," in Morse code on a telephone pole outside her window and just would not stop, no matter how much Cokie cried and begged it to please give her some peace. And of course, there was the panel discussion on Fox News where Charles Krauthammer pretended to be discussing the ins and outs of American policy in the Balkans, but if you took out every other word and then randomly scrambled the letters of what was left, you ended up with a message reading, "Your commentary is banal, Cokie, and no one respects you." Or maybe that was just the Cokie talking. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. That was mean. Now I feel bad about myself. No, I don't really. I'm joking. I don't actually feel. All right, it's Mailbag Day. Hooray! But if you're watching this on Facebook and YouTube, we will cut out after 15 minutes and the mailbag will be on the other side of that. So you'll have to come to the Daily Wire, or you can download us on SoundCloud or iTunes and hear the rest. And of course, if you want to watch the show in its entirety, you have to subscribe for a lousy $8 a month. You get 30 days for free, and then it's a lousy $8 a month. And then you can be part of the mailbag next week. You can put your question in the mailbag, and we will tell you everything you need to know. And I have seen that people have been sending in their receipts for to pre-order my memoir, The Great Good Thing, A Secular Jew Comes to Faith in Christ. It got a very nice mention in the Christian Booksellers professional magazine today. They called it a heart-wrenching story. I'm not sure how I feel about having my life called a heart-wrenching story, but they did call it a heart-wrenching story. And it was a very nice mention. So you can pre-order it at Amazon or wherever you like and send me the receipt, and I will send you a sticker with an autograph on it that you can put in the book. All right, so it's very rare for me that the news becomes personal, but it did become personal today. There's been yet another shakeup in the Donald Trump campaign, and he has put Steve Bannon, the former head of Breitbart, at the top of his campaign. Paul Manafort still retains the name of campaign manager, I think, but Steve Bannon is now running the campaign. Now, you remember that Steve Bannon is the fellow that Ben Shapiro got into a public scrap with over the treatment of Michelle Fields. And Ben quit the Breitbart site where he was working for Bannon and publicly called Bannon a bully. I want to say let me say a couple of things. First of all, every single day, I get a tweet or an email or a Facebook note telling me that I've been bought off, that somebody has bought me off, that I say nasty things about Trump because the Hillary campaign has bought me off, or I say nasty things about Hillary because the Trump campaign has bought me off. And I keep saying, if I've been bought off, where the hell's the check? Where's my, come on, where's the payoff? And the thing that is a joke about this is if I have one salient personality trait is that everybody knows exactly what I think. My wife has been saying this ruefully forever. Even my employers, if I don't like something, if I have something to say to them, they hear from me. There's nobody that I say anything that I won't say something to his face that I'll say behind his back. I will tell anybody what I think about anything. And that is the joke. When you're accused of being bought off by all sides, that's a good sign that you haven't been bought off by anybody and you're just mouthing off. And I'm going to continue to do that. And what I've done with this campaign is I've just tried to say, this is what I think Trump is doing, and this is how I think it's going, and this is what I think Clinton is doing, and this is how I think it's going. I just try to give you my take on it, and that's what I'm being paid for, and that's what I hope you're listening for. But this does become a little personal because now we have a guy running this campaign who Shapiro has openly warred with. And here's the thing. I've met Bannon several times. We've had several conversations. They've all been entirely cordial, but they haven't been about politics at all. They've always been about the movie business because Bannon had some kind of ambitions in the movie business. So I've talked to him about that a couple of times, and we've always had cordial relationships. But I don't really know the guy. I do know Shapiro. And here's what I will tell you. I've been working with Shapiro now for a long time. And this is a guy, and this is probably something I wouldn't say to his face because I know it would embarrass him. This is a guy of genuine principle and moral courage, first of all. He is also, despite this smart aleck persona, he is also, as we all know here, a tremendously decent person, though he probably wouldn't want me to tell you that. But that I don't want to harsh his shtick or anything, but that is also true. When Bannon says that, when Shapiro says that Bannon is, as he wrote today, a legitimately sinister figure, that many former employees of Breitbart News are afraid of Steve Bannon, he's a vindictive, nasty figure, infamous for verbally abusing supposed friends and threatening enemies. He goes on to say that he's a guy who takes over things and hollows them out for his own purposes, that he will ride the Trump train to his own success, whether Trump wins or loses. The chance of that being true is approximately 100%, okay? When Shapiro says that about somebody, the chance of that being true, I can testify to you, is approximately 100%. So now we're in a position where if Trump wins, a guy that despises Shapiro, and probably I would guess if he has any thoughts about me, they're not kindly either, especially after what I just said, is going to be elevated to a position of power. He could wind up as chief of staff of the president of the United States. And if he has Shapiro lined up and shot, it's going to harsh my buzz. I mean, that's basically what I want to say. So that is going to affect the way I see things. I am still going to make every effort to just tell you what I think every single day about what's going on and just give you an honest read from somebody who, as I've said a million times, has already lost this election because there's no chance of an outcome in which the government becomes less powerful and personal liberty is extended. There's no chance of that outcome between Hillary and Trump. So I have no dog in the fight, essentially. I've already lost. But I will tell you that if Trump is telling you that Bannon is a sinister guy, that you're going to have to watch out for him, that he's going to bully people, there's a 100% chance of that being true. All that said, I have to tell you that Trump has been on a roll, which for Donald Trump means there's been 2 days where he hasn't backed an SUV over a baby. That's a roll for Donald Trump. But he made a terrific speech I talked about foreign policy. And yesterday, late at night, really, he made just an excellent speech about the problems that are going on in Milwaukee. He was at a couple of miles outside of Milwaukee, and he was talking about this. And he pointed out that it's Democrat policies that have caused this violence to occur. Let's play the first thing. This is where he talks about the Democrat war on police and what effects it's having.
The war on police is a war on all peaceful citizens who want to be able to work and live and send their kids to school in safety. Our job is not to make life more comfortable for the rioter or the robber or the looter or the violent disruptor, of which there are many. Our job is to make life more comfortable for the African American parent who wants their kids to be able to safely walk the streets and walk to school, or the senior citizen waiting for a bus, or the young child walking home from school. For every one violent protester, there are 100 moms and dads and kids on the same city block who just want to be able to sleep safely at night. They want safety.
So, this is the thing that Republicans never do. They never call out the Democrats on their record on blacks. And Trump actually says in this speech, I am asking for the black vote, which is something, again, Republicans, the thing that I have scored Republicans on is they never go into these neighborhoods and say you're being screwed by the very policies that seem to be helping you. I mean, the problem is that the Democrats know they can take this vote for granted. They can take the African-American vote for granted. They don't have to do anything for them. And the things they do for them to make them look good are destructive. They do the things that you would never do. I mean, if a friend came to you and said, my life is a mess, I've had children out of wedlock, I'm taking drugs, I'm committing crimes, I'm in trouble with the police, you would not say to him, that's the fault of your oppressor. You would not say, you would say, get your life in order, pal, because he is your friend. That is what you say to a friend. That is not what the Democrats say to blacks. It's always somebody else's fault. There's always somebody around the corner oppressing them. It's always, we're going to take care of you, we're going to do things for you. If you said that to your friend, you would be being destructive and evil, and that is the way the Democrats have treated the blacks. And Trump says that. He asked for the black vote, and then here's the second cut.
I'm asking for the vote of every African-American citizen struggling in our country today who wants a different and much better future. It's time for our society to address some honest and very, very difficult truths. The Democratic Party has failed and betrayed the African American community. Democratic crime policies, education policies, and economic policies have produced only more crime, more broken homes, and more poverty.
Here's a list of the poorest cities in the country and when they last had a Republican mayor. Detroit, of course, number one. Last had a Republican mayor in 1961. Okay, that's more than 50 years ago. Buffalo, New York, hasn't elected a Republican mayor since 1954. Cincinnati, since 1984. Cleveland, since 1989. Miami, Florida, has never had a Republican mayor. St. Louis, Missouri, since 1949. El Paso, Texas, has never had a Republican mayor. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 1908. There was one in there who was like a Republican-Democrat fusion ticket, I remember. Philadelphia, 52. Newark, New Jersey, 1907. What was it Einstein who said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? I mean, when does this community wake up? When does it wake up and say our friends are our oppressors? Our friends are destroying us, So Trump goes out and he makes the speech, and like I said, I thought it was a very good, very powerful speech, made at a very appropriate time. Milwaukee is still seething. The violence is right under the surface and it's coming out. I think there was a guy shot yesterday. The New York Times hears this, and you can always tell how effective a Republican is being when the New York Times goes bats. Okay, so this is supposed to be a news story. Here's what they used to call the paper of record. Now I call it a former newspaper, which is far more accurate. But they used to call the New York Times the paper of record. So the paper of record, reporting on the speech you just heard a couple of cuts from. Okay, Trump rallying white crowd for police accuses Democrats of exploiting blacks. They can't even report the story. 40 miles north of the racially charged unrest unfolding in Milwaukee, Donald J. Trump spoke to a nearly all-white crowd here on Tuesday, accusing Hillary Clinton of complicity in violence against police officers and claiming to reject the bigotry of Democrats who he said were responsible for the plight of many black neighborhoods. It was a dual and seemingly clashing message, says this objective reporter. A dual and seemingly clashing message. What was the clash? I mean, you basically heard the substance of the speech. Where was there a clash? As Mr. Trump, in some of his strongest language yet, told a crowd of 2,000 people that he would restore law and order, and that Mrs. Clinton panders to and talks down to communities of color and sees them only as votes. He blamed her for pushing a narrative that he said had helped set off the demonstrations in Milwaukee and other cities after police-involved shooting. But Mr. Trump declined to hold a public event in Milwaukee, where 40% of residents are black, and instead decided to speak where 95% of residents are white, and where many had said they hoped Mr. Trump's rally would be a chance to celebrate the police. So in other words, he's being scored in the news story, not in their commentary, just in the news story. He's being attacked for where he did not schedule his speech, and for speaking to his supporters, for being on the campaign trail and speaking to people who support Donald Trump. We know that Republicans don't have is there 0% of black support for Donald Trump at this point in the polls? We know that. So he's speaking to his supporters, and yet they're turning this against him. I mean, they can barely keep from. And why? Because if Republicans got 10% of the black vote, there would be no Democrat Party. That would be the end of the Democrat Party. If that block, that is the block they depend on to put them over the top. And so, the other thing is if Trump hadn't made so many gaffes and he didn't play into the press's hatred of him, the press's unfair treatment of him, if he didn't represent so much of what they say he represents, Hillary is falling apart. I mean, Hillary's campaign should just be a pile of dust and ashes at this point. The House Government Oversight and Reform Committee said Tuesday that the FBI had handed over documents, and they detailed the perjury allegations against Hillary Clinton, citing the apparent conflict between her 2015 congressional testimony about her email practices and the FBI's conclusions announced in July, according to a letter to the U.S. Attorney. So they sent the U.S. Attorney, the Justice Department, a note saying, look, we think she committed perjury. In fact, here's a video they made kind of demonstrating that.
And so there's only one server, is that what you're telling me? And it's the one server that the FBI has?
The FBI has the server that was used during the tenure of my State Department service.
Secretary Clinton used several different servers and administrators of those servers during her 4 years at the State Department. And she also used numerous mobile devices to send and to read email on that personal domain. As new servers and equipment were employed, older servers were taken out of service, stored, and decommissioned in various ways.
I provided the department, which has been providing you, with all of my work-related emails, all that I had.
The FBI also discovered several thousand work-related emails that were not among the group of 30,000 emails returned by Secretary Clinton to State in 2014. It's also likely that there are other work-related emails that they did not produce to State and that we did not find elsewhere and that are now gone.
Okay, brutal stuff. We got to say goodbye to Facebook and to YouTube. Come to the Daily Wire and hear the rest.